So let's go ahead and take a look at the difference between the address and Plumb mode within the Capto software. So in the bottom right hand corner, we have it currently set to the address mode. Now as I toggle back and forth between Plumb and address, you're going to see two of the data tiles are changing. Shaft is going from plus 0.6 add loft to minus 1.4 D-loft, and then the lie has gone from 0.8 toe down to 1.5 toe up. So a big difference in the data. One is telling us that the player has added loft at impact, the other is telling us the player has de-lofted at impact. So it's important that we understand the difference between these two when we're looking at the data. Ultimately, the address function is the last known position of the putter as prior to the putter starting the stroke. So it uses this as the zero. It uses this to compare the impact conditions. So in the instance of shaft, it is saying that the last known position of the putter is 0, and then if the player returns it with the same amount of loft as they started with at addressed, then the difference would be 0 degrees. So this number here would show 0 degrees. Now this player, from wherever they started it at address, it could have been minus 6 degrees, it could have been minus 2 degrees. We don't know just looking at it like this, but we know that this player at impact added 0.6 degrees. And the same thing with the lie. All we know is that from address to impact, the player's putter was 0.8 degrees toe down. So in this example here, the player is starting with 4 degrees of forward shaft lean. So in the address mode, it's going to use this to compare the impact conditions to. This is now the baseline, this is the 0. So as the player makes the stroke, the green represents where they started, the silver is where they finished at impact. So in the address mode, that would show us that they have had a change of plus 2 degrees add loft. So in the Plumb, this would mean that the player is now gone from 4 degrees of D-loft at address to 2 degrees of D-loft at impact. So if we go back to our screen here, the difference between address and Plumb is showing you where the player actually started relative to that Plumb line. So with this player at address, we know that they started with 2 degrees of shaft lean, and at impact, they had 1.4 degrees of shaft lean, which is why we had that difference of plus 0.6 degrees added loft. So you have to understand the difference between Plumb and address when you're assessing players, because sometimes what we see in the address mode doesn't always tell us what the player actually did.